Will, good morning. The pen is mightier, and we had a discussion in the last segment of the program about some players with perhaps something to prove in 2024. You've written about a group of managers who might make that same case. Let's dig right in on this list. Dave Roberts been there almost a decade. Division titles every year, postseason every year. He did get the World Series title in 2020. Some want to discredit that. I don't think that's fair. He won a World Series. What is there for Dave Roberts to prove that he hasn't already proven?
Listen, it is definitely not fair. I would argue that it was harder to win the 2020 World Series than it's actually been to win a lot of other World Series. However, you and I are probably not the popular consensus on that. I think there is a sense that the Dodgers need to win a full season's World Series, and they've fallen short in the playoffs. Clearly, the Dodgers feel like they're ready to win a World Series right now because they've gone all in this year. Roberts is a guy who I think gets kind of criticized a little bit unfairly sometimes, but certainly there have been questions about some of his postseason moves. The Dodgers are a team that, with the money they've spent, all the talent they have, they want to win a World Series right now. If there's another year where it's built up as they are built up for this season, if Roberts makes like a strategic mistake, like I think some have argued he has in some past postseasons, I think the heat will be on him a lot more. To be clear, I'm not saying all of these managers are on the hot seat, though I think you can make an argument for some, but certainly all eyes are on them, and I'm not sure there's more eyes really on anyone than Roberts this year.
I think that's a fair way to state it. Let's go to another skipper who's on the other end of the experience spectrum. Dave Roberts entering his 9th season, Oli Marmol entering his 3rd. And if all eyes are on him, is it only because the Cardinals finished with their lowest win total since 1995? Under his watch, they went 71-91. And again, is that fair to judge a manager by that?
You know, I think it's obviously like it was an organizational collapse last year. I don't think it's fair to put it all on Marmol, but there were some red flags clearly with Marmol last year. I think the battle with Tyler O'Neill about hustling early in the year. I think even worse, the Wilson Contreras thing that really kind of like spoke to a disconnect between the pitchers and the new catcher. There was a lot of strange press conference moments and some strange fighting with umpire moments. More to the point, Marmol, you know, he's actually this is a free agent. His contract only runs through this season. I think that the Cardinals and their fans and the organization, this is something they haven't finished the last place since 1990. Last year was an absolute disaster. Listen, we can argue whether or not their moves to improve the rotation were enough. Clearly, the Cardinals believe they are, and I think that's going to be on Marmol, not just to be better this year, but to really feel like the clubhouse is under a little bit more control than it was last year. And I think they've worked on that. They've got veteran guys in there. I think even bringing back Matt Carpenter was back a part of that idea. But I think it speaks to the idea that if you have to bring in veteran guys like Matt Carpenter to help out the clubhouse, that speaks something to the very inexperienced manager that's only really in his 3rd full year. So he's clearly under a lot of heat, and I think he knows it, and I think everybody understands it.
I think, as we all know, too, that it's fair to say that there's more pressure on a manager who's got a roster with big-time stars on it than there is the manager who's got the young group looking to establish. And as we move forward on your list, Dave Martinez has won a World Series as well. But this is a manager that has not had a lot of big-time stars. That's changing, though. A lot of the younger players in D.C. are kind of evolving and growing. Some people think this is going to be a big step forward year for the Nats. Talk about Dave Martinez in 2024.
Yeah, and I think their roster is better. I think asking them to compete or really make a big move in the NL East is asking a lot, but I think you're right. I think a lot of people think the Nationals are ready to make that step forward. And whenever you feel like a team's ready to make a step forward, if they don't, people tend to look at the manager. I think particularly a manager that's been there for a long time. Yes, he's won a World Series. Joe Maddon also won a World Series, and Terry Francona also won rather famously World Series for their teams, and they were still kind of let go. I think Martinez, they have not finished out of last place since they won that World Series. I think that there's a sense in Washington that while they've had some kind of things go against them and they've had some bad luck since that World Series season, it's probably time to start doing something. And I think when that happens, you tend to kind of look at the manager that's been there a long time and wonder, is this the guy to lead us into the future? He'll have that World Series ring forever. He'll always be able to come back and have that. But eventually you need to show that you are ready to be the manager for the next generation of the team. And I think it's up in the air. And I think this year will be a large deciding factor in whether or not that's the case.
Visiting with Will Leitch, who has written on managers with the toughest jobs in 2024 on MLB.com. And of all the managers managers you list in the piece, this was the one I circled as perhaps being the most interesting to me, because for Joe Espada, finally getting a managerial opportunity, he's interviewed for a number of them. He's inheriting a team that just rubber stamp wins its way into the ALCS. For that reason, you don't want to be the guy that gets the keys to the mansion and then has it collapse under your watch. I think there's more pressure on Joe than there is perhaps anybody that we've listed before.
Yeah, this is like being the coach of Alabama now, right? Like you're taking over and like, oh, hey, welcome, congratulations, you've got the job you've worked your entire life for. Please make the ALCS for the 7th consecutive year, or we're going to feel like you took us a big step backward. That's a huge, huge issue. And I think we've seen this sometimes, right? We've seen guys that have worked their way for a long time finally get their chance. And for whatever reason, listen, manager is a different job. It's much more public facing. Whenever something's going wrong, no one points at the bench coach. No one points at the loyal guy that's been there forever. They point at you, the manager. You're the one that's got to take the question. You're the one that if things start going wrong, they're going to blame you. And so it's a super, super tough job. Obviously, he has a lot of talent. You'd rather have his talent than, say, the A's talent, for example. But with that comes that sort of pressure. It's going to be on them real fast. They're in the same division as an interstate rival that just won the World Series. If they take a step back, fairly or not, you can't help but be like, I don't know, the managers here for the last 6 years got to the ALCS. You just got here and stopped that. I think that's a lot of pressure for a guy who seems ready, but certainly has a lot of expectations, to say the very least.
Can't let you go, Will, without giving you a chance to pop book number 2, which I see positioned behind you. The time has come.
How did you come up with the title?
Well, that's not necessarily the question. Tell us about the second book.
Yeah, the book is called The Time Has Come. It takes place just sort of post-COVID, where everyone's trying to get their way out of the world that they've kind of been isolated by. And there's a scary incident that happens that follows 6 people through up to that incident, and they try to survive it. I'm actually working on the next one. I've got the next book about a cop who has a brain disorder who has to get himself killed on the job to get the insurance money. So I'm high concept plot, all these things. You know the things all have in common, though? They have nothing to do with baseball. But someday I will write a novel about baseball, I promise.
Excellent.
If I was a writer, I'd be dangerous.
Yes, we're very clear on that too, HR. Will Leitch joining us, his piece, Managers with the Toughest Jobs, on MLB.com as we speak. Will, thanks.
Of course, thank you, sir.